Sup you phonies, how's it going? Welcome to another video, and today we're gonna create a very cool, epic Blender environment with simple geometry, with simple meshes. So not much modeling is gonna be involved, because I want to show you how much you can accomplish if you just put your mind to it, even if you don't have this crazy knowledge about modeling. Like this guy, I don't know anything about modeling, so we'll see how that goes. So we're here in Blender. I'm starting as usual with my camera and my little Michal here. Look at this guy. Ooh, handsome. And I'm gonna keep him just for scale references. Now I have to figure out what kind of environment do I want to build, and I think I'm gonna go with like some futuristic kind of city, because simple geometry is perfect for that. So I'm gonna keep my little Michal here for now. My camera, I'm just gonna take a look in my camera settings. It's a fisheye look. It's all fine. I'm gonna figure out the camera settings later, but I do know is that I want to start with the long street. To make something, a mesh, you hit Shift A, go on mesh, and in that case I'm gonna start with the plane. Now I'm gonna go to top view, I hit 7, I see my camera here, I scale this up along the X axis. Gonna make it long enough. In my top view here, we can see already, okay, I have a street. Pretty cool. Nothing interesting yet, but it'll do for now. So now I don't want the street to be just perfectly straight. Just gonna make it a little longer. I want it to be like a little more interesting. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit tab for edit mode. Click either 2 or the edge selecting tool, and now when I get closer here I hit Control R and I can add a few subdivisions. So now you can see already when I'm going through my little plane here that I have those subdivisions, and now I can distort it a little. I'm just gonna do that in edit mode. I'm gonna select the face select mode, and I also gonna select the proportional editing. Now I'm just gonna select a few layers here, not layers, like faces, hit G. And because I'm in proportional editing, when I zoom out I can have it a little wider and bigger, so more faces are selected a little. If I didn't do this, it would be just very sharp. Only these faces would move, but I want it to be smoother. Proportional editing, not that smooth, because I want the beginning of the street to still be there. So I'm just gonna distort it a little here, distort it a little there, and maybe in the end also like this, maybe rotate it a little. Perfect, I'm gonna rotate this part. Cool. Hit tab to get back to object mode, and now right click and shade smooth. Now I have a little road here. Okay, that's good for the beginning, but that's not enough. What else do we need? Let's put some skyscrapers, buildings and stuff like that here. So I'm gonna shift right click somewhere where I want my first skyscraper to be. But to be exact, what I always recommend is you start from the foreground and then work your way towards the background, because if you start working on the background you add a lot of detail maybe, and then you're gonna come to the foreground and build things on top or in front of it, and then you're not even gonna see the background. That's why in editing or like in 3D design, I always recommend starting with the foreground first. So we have the camera here, so let's start with our first object right here. So Shift A, let's make a cube. Bring it to the ground level. Okay, that is a cube, but it's not impressive enough. I'm gonna scale it up towards the Z axis. I want it to be bigger. Cool. Bring it to the side. And now I'm just gonna do the same thing over and over. I'm gonna go to top view, Alt D. I'm just gonna duplicate the same thing over and over, rotate it a little. scale it a little down, and I'm just going to duplicate the same objects over and over everywhere until I have my scene more populated. And in my top view in my camera, I actually see what's visible and what's not. Now when I go to side view, I can see they're all kind of the same height, so I'm just gonna adjust them manually a little. You can be very dirty with that kind of work. You can even push them into the ground because they're going to be cut off eventually anyways. So don't worry about that. So instead of scaling, you can just bring them down a little. Let's go to the front view. It's always nice to see the top edge of your buildings. I assume it's buildings, because otherwise you don't know what you're looking at, you know? Okay, that's already pretty decent, you know, so that's what we got right now. I see empty space like right here, so I'm just gonna add, let's do maybe, what is it, a cylinder instead. Under the cylinder options, I can have the vertices. Right now it's 32. Let's do 16 because I don't need that much information. So let's do 16, shade smooth. And now I'm gonna do the same thing. Those, rather, I want them longer, like poles or something, but thinner. Long and thin, that's what they like. At least I hope so. So now I'm gonna just do the same thing. I'm gonna Alt-D, duplicate those things over the place. And the good thing about Alt-D instead of Shift-D is that, yes, you do copy your objects, but you also, you're technically just making instances, which means that you don't really add geometry into your scene. It's basically like a clone. So if I did adjust one of them, let's go to one of those cubes, and let's go to edit mode, and let's say I want to extract the top here. All of them are gonna do the same thing. That's the cool thing. It also can be a problem if I only want to adjust one of those buildings, but we try to keep the scene as simple as possible, so I'm probably not gonna do that as much. If I do, I would just start with a new cube. Anyways, so let's build more of those pillars here all over the place. And yeah, I've been working on this for like 2 minutes now or so, and already we can see some cool actions going on. And I know right now it doesn't look like much, but the cool thing about 3D is you can achieve detail and stuff like that so much better with like lighting in the end, with materials. And even though we're gonna keep the materials here very simple, it's still gonna look pretty cool, I promise. Actually, I don't promise, because it's the first time I built an environment like that in such a simple way, in such a simple manner. So I actually don't know what it's gonna look like in the end. Let's just hope for the best. If you like this video so far, make sure to hit the thumbs up button, because that's gonna help a lot. We can see that I made this street like way too long, so I'm probably not even gonna go that far. One thing I forgot is you want to apply the scale every time you change the scale of something. Just for the materials, I just have to do that once for every object I have here. Cool. Okay, now I want to add a ground plane for everything else. I do have the street here, but I do need another object just for everything else. So I'm just gonna go to like here, shift right click. So this is where my 3D cursor is. And now I'm gonna shift A and add another plane. And this one, I'm gonna scale up like a lot. I just want to fill the entire ground, sink it a little into the ground so we still see our street on top of that. And yeah, that's it. So, okay, one thing we can add here, because those are simple cubes, I want to add a little more detail into that without crazy modeling here, but let's say I want to bevel those edges, because no edge in real life is perfectly sharp. When you look at your table, there's always a little bit of bevel, and now we're going to add that to our cubes. So I'm going to go to tab for edit mode, 2 for my edges. Just going to select one edge. Now I'm going to select all of them, and now I'm going to Control B. You see I have this thing here. Now I can add a bevel. When I use the mouse wheel, I can add another corner, and that's what I'm going to do. There is better ways to do that. Not better, but other ways. You can use a bevel modifier, which is non-destructive, which if there was a real project, a movie I'm working on, then I probably would prefer doing that. But since this is just a tutorial, I'll just do that. And now when I look at those edges, they're not perfectly sharp, shade smooth, and now it looks a little more, you know, organic. And now I feel like we can start working on our camera animation. So I just want my camera to go through this city a little, very slowly. So I'm just gonna go on my camera here, the camera selected, go on the right to item, and then I hit on I, hover over the location I, and the rotation I. So now I created keyframes. And I'm just gonna go, let's say our animation is gonna be 200 frames long. So I'm just gonna go through my little scene here. Now you see those two values are changed but not animated, so I'm gonna hit I again. Now I created other keyframes here. I want all the animation not to be eased, so I'm gonna hover over the graph editor here, hit T, and I can make it constant, linear, or Bezier. Where right now it's Bezier. I want it to be linear, so this edge here is sharp now. You see, before it eases in, you see this curve here, it eases in and then it slows down eventually, but I don't want that. I want it to just start and stop, linear. Okay, right while this is happening, I want the camera also to pan up slowly. So the rotation in the beginning is already animated, so just in the end I'm just gonna rotate the camera maybe a little on the Z-axis and also on the X-axis, so that it's looking up while we go. I'm gonna animate this, so now while we go through our scene, the camera starts looking up. Sweet. Now we already see I need a little more detail here in the background. So whatever is going to be here, just gonna, with shift, I'm just gonna select everything what is here, Alt D, and bring it somewhere where it's visible. And I'm gonna scale it up a little because it's further away. Here, this is perfect. Now I think I need another one of my little poles here. Let's take this one because it's tall already. Alt D, bring it over here. Bring it up a little. I'm gonna make my plane. You see that the plane starts like way before the camera even starts. So I don't need it back here. I need it more this way. So I'm gonna hit G, X, and bring it closer this direction. All right, that's already pretty cool. When I look through my cycles view, we see, okay, our camera is way too wide, so I'm gonna fix that real quick. for that, you click on your camera, go in your camera settings here. I want the fisheye look, but I don't want the focal length to be that wide. So let's go to 24. It's like pretty much normal. And we see that the scene starts way too late. And I also see that this cube here is actually hovering. So I'm gonna G and bring it into the ground. But since I animated my camera already, there's a few ways I can do it. I can either just change the first location, what is it, keyframe. So where's it's probably the X location, so it's this one. Zoom in, this is my X. Now when I bring it up or down with G, I can just select it. I can just bring it a little closer so our animation starts actually here. Well, now when I go to the last frame, still making sure everything looks fine. I still need a little bit more action here, so I'm just gonna add something real quick. Okay, since we only have two objects right now, I'm gonna select my 3D cursor to be here because that's kind of where it has to be. Shift A, and what else do we have? We have icospheres, we don't need that. Circles, cubes. Let's go with a cone. Why not a cone? On this cone, let's actually make this again. I want to look at the settings, what we got here. Cone, I can adjust the vertices. I can make it just a triangle. If I have 3 vertices, I don't think I can have less than 3, no. 3 vertices, so it's basically just like a pyramid. That's pretty cool. So now I'm gonna just make this pyramid bigger. See, now I see already it's like here in the background. I'm gonna bring it further to the right, so we have it here. And I'm gonna add this copy paste this pyramid to a few different spots, adjust the sizes, making sure it's always sunken into the ground, otherwise it would be floating, and I don't want that. So I'm just going to copy paste it here and there just to make it a little more interesting. And you see what I'm doing here is very simple. It's like once you have the controls nailed down, so you know how to navigate through Blender, it's very simple, and I promise you in the end it's gonna look pretty cool, it's gonna look abstract, and it is done very simply. Especially with those pyramids, I would always consider rotating them. You rotate it with R just a little bit so you have some variety. It's not super important or not important at all with the cylinders. With the cubes, it's a little also important to do that, otherwise they all look the same. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Now this one, let me go to the side view and see which ones are floating, because I made the mistake to not stick them all into the ground, and that's a major mistake. You don't want that. Making sure all of them are sunken into the ground. So I'm looking at this green the line here and making sure all of these edges are in the ground. Otherwise you're going to see that they're floating, and this is no good. Let me show you an example. So if this one was like here, you see the shadow is like away from the object. I don't want that. I want it to be sunken into the ground. That one in particular, I'm going to move a little to the right. Rotate. So we have our camera movement, we have our scene. Now there's a few things we can do for the lighting. What I always like to start with is adding a sunlight, something like a rim light. The light is coming from the back, it always looks more cinematic. And the way I add light is I do Shift A, go on lights and add a sunlight. Doesn't matter where it is, because the sun is parallel, because it's so far away there is like no light distortion like with a spotlight, for example. So right now we see we have a light here And we also see that this guy is floating too. Look at this guy, let me see. I think it's this guy. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure once I'm done and rendering and everything, then I'm gonna see objects floating, and that's gonna suck. But the problem is with the mistake I made, I didn't make sure before I copied them that they're actually sunken into the ground. But that's okay. It's just a practice project here anyways. Okay, I was working on the sunlight. So I want the sun right now, it's like really top down. You can see it on our Mihal here, how he's lit. So now when I go on my sun, by the way, when you click on an object and hit the dot button in your numlog section, then you zoom in on any object. You can select it here and zoom in, or you go in the list and then you can be close to your object. So now I'm just gonna hit R and rotate my sun. So it's coming a little from the back left, a little more angled. I can even increase the angle. Usually the sun is 0.5, but I can increase the angle a little so it's a little softer. And I like soft lights, especially in 3D scenes. Yeah. And the one issue we're gonna have is we see lots of just grayness in the background. First of all, it is gray because if we go here to our world settings, just a gray background is selected. We don't want that. When I remove that, it's just going to be black, which we don't want either. So we have a few different options. Either I'm just going to put an image back there, you know, just on a big plane. I could do that. And I would do this by downloading an image, and then I'm just going to bring it up on the background. I can do that, but my first thing I always try is I go here on my asset browser, use an HDRI, because I have lots of HDRIs from Polyhaven. It's free, you can download it, and then I'm gonna go to outdoor, either skies are not great, let's go to urban, and whatever looks like city, I'm gonna use. Let me make this a little bigger here. That's what she said. Let's see what they got here. Nothing too impressive, because I want something futuristic, simple lighting, soft lighting. Fine, let's go with that one. So right now, we see it's like pixelated in the background. We can change that if we increase our HDRI quality and go to 4K, so the image is going to look better. But what we can also do is rotate it, because sometimes I don't like the orientation. So either I want buildings or something. Yeah, let's do these buildings here. And now I'm gonna go down with the strength, because I don't want it to impact my scene too much. Perfect. Okay, so we have a sunlight, but what I also want to do is adding an area light, a very big area light, and those work a little differently. Area, bring this up, and there it really matters where it is and how big it is, but I want it to be like real big. It's basically a skylight. For a little color contrast under the light sections, I can increase the strength. Let's go to something high. Let's go to something higher. And of course it should shine in the right direction, so when I rotate this, hit 180. Okay. It's too strong. Also want it to be a little blue for like some color contrast. Okay. So that's basically our lighting. Now we need to give our objects materials. And the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna start with the street and our polyhaven thing. We also have materials. So I'm gonna go to textures, see what they have: metal, fabric, rock, roofing, terrain. I want something cinematic, so ground gray could work for our street here. Isolated, and adding this to our street. Now we see our textures are stretched out. I don't want that, and we can fix it easily. Or if we go to our mapping node, and instead of UV, we're gonna go on object. Already looks better. We're gonna add, we add in Blender the same way always. Add value. Hook this into the scale, and now we can have the right scale for our texture here, and that looks pretty cool. Okay, it definitely has a normal map, which is good. It does have a roughness. I'm probably gonna add another roughness. We can mix roughnesses or add another one. First, I want to see what it does without the roughness. You know what, I'm going to leave this one alone. But I'm definitely going to add... Nope, I shouldn't be moving in there. Let's make a material for our box here. Roughness down, metallic up. It's nice and shiny. And you see all of our boxes, they do the same thing. So they're all pretty shiny and fancy. There definitely I want to add my own roughness map. I can always copy separate like values from other textures. But in that case, I'm just gonna go to my asset folder. I have imperfection maps. Those imperfection maps basically look like this, and then I just can add them to my objects, which I'm going to do now. So I'm just drag and drop an image like this here. If you want to use mine, you can. If you want to use mine, you can go to my Patreon. Get those for free. So now I'm just going to hook up this to my roughness, and if I just want to see what it would look like without any of the other things, then this is what it would look like, what I obviously don't like. So I'm gonna add a texture coordinate node, select this to box, from UV and go to object. Now I just have to adjust the scale, so yes, same thing, Shift A. Value, because I want to control all these three settings at once. And now I just have to make it the right size. That's fine. I can blend the edges a little, which always helps. Cool. Now between my this texture and my roughness, I'm gonna add a ramp. Shift A, color ramp in between. So now I can adjust the values a little. Because what I want is basically add scratches and imperfections to my node. I'm basically just increasing the contrast of my thing. When I go in EV mode, I can actually look at my materials, what they look like. So you see reflections, which is fine, but I want to increase my contrast a little more. See, I added like those little scratches here, and you know, it's always good to have like details like that. Cool. So now I'm just going to copy paste this material and put it on my cylinder as well. New material, cylinder. Delete this thing. Paste it in here to output. We don't need that one. But I can change the color. Let's make this one black, just for some variety. I'm just going to copy this onto my pyramids. Pyramid. I'm not just gonna make those yellow, pink, I'm also make them emissive. So they're actually gonna make light. We can see that probably in cycles. See that they're actually doing some light stuff, which is cool. This one is touching our street. I don't want this. All right. And now I just want to populate everything more. So I'm just going to select a bunch of those. Alt-D. Bring it closer to the camera. Let's scale it way down. And populate the area around my camera. So I'm going to go to top view. I see my camera here. Rotate this. I accidentally also copied my sun. For our ground material, I'm just gonna copy the same material over and over because that's all I need really. I'm gonna adjust my little road here a little. I'm gonna put a curves on it. It doesn't make it dark. Because why not? And my big background objects, I'm just going to duplicate again because I need more action going on in the background. Scale. And that should do. Now I have like skyscrapers in the background. What if we make it white instead? What if we hide it completely? Works for me too. Okay, now the final thing I always like to do, it always gives it always makes those scenes look extra cool when you add haze to them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my 3D cursor in the middle, Shift A, make a cube, make this as big as my scene here. It's probably overkill, but I'm just going to do it anyways. Now we have everything in this cube. I'm going to give this a new material. I'm going to delete the principal, give this a volume scatter. Instead of going into surface, you're going to go into volume. This has to be 0.6, don't ask me why. Density, I'm just going to do 0.1. Too dense, 0.01. Let's go 0.05. Works. And now we're gonna have some cool haze. That also means that we have to adjust our light situation a little. The first thing I do is I'm gonna go to my area light. Turn off, turn on. I'm going to turn this off. I'm also going to turn off my HDRI just to see what's it going to do. But I'm going to increase my sun. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to make the same box one more time. Mesh, cube, box. Make it big. But this time, go to world, go to Object, give it a new material, call it also volume 2. But this one is going to be a little different. So we're going to do the same thing, volume, scatter, plug this into our volume, because what we're going to do here is we're going to have more haze coming from the ground, which is going to be cool. So we're going to also hook up a gradient node, gradient texture, hook this one up into the density, go on spherical, a ramp in between, and just to click that on ease because it's going to make it a little softer. Control T for a texture coordinate node, just so we can control this better. Again, add a value node. And we see that our haze here starts from the corner, which we don't want, so I'm just gonna have a different location for the beginning, because I want the haze to be basically in the ground. This is the haze I'm talking about here. I just have to move it into the right position. I'm going to check it from every direction if it's like centered more or less. And bring it closer into the ground. See what I did there? So now the haze is basically starting from the ground. Let me just see. I definitely needed way lower. And I can even adjust those two to make it just less dense. Now I'm just going to bring my little Mihao further into the scene. You can be just standing there and enjoying the view. So while our camera is panning in, we can see what he's seeing. One more extra thing before I wrap this video up, because for good measures, Shift A, I have images as planes, and then I'm gonna add some smoke assets I have. Assets, Ian smoke assets. I'm just gonna use the slow diagonal drift. Now I have this here, and that just basically loops some haze or like smoke. I'm just gonna apply the scale. There's a little things we have to do to it to actually make it look visible, because we don't need this one. What we do need is a translucent node and a transparent node. Put this on top. Gonna mix those two. This goes into the shader. And now the actual smoke goes into the factor. Now we have a little smoke coming out. If it's not enough, I click here on the white thing and increase the value by 2, for example. See? Smoke. Let's look at it in cycles if we even see it. Yeah, there it is. So one more thing we have to do to this is we have to give it a constraint. Tracked to, because I want this smoke to be tracked to the camera. So I'm just going to select the camera here. So now it's always going to be facing the camera. It doesn't matter where the camera goes. It always goes, moves, rotates with the camera. I'm just going to duplicate this thing a few times throughout the scene. Just to have a little variety. I can also just flip it here and there. We see it's black here because if you do that too many times, let's do it one more time. If you do that too many times, then and you don't have enough transparency bounces, then you can't see through. So what you need to do is, if you see like a black thing like that, not a big problem. Just go to your transparency light paths, increase this number until it's gone. Don't go too crazy though on any of those numbers. Just keep it as low as possible, as high as necessary, just that you can see everything. And I'm just going to add some extra detail for the buildings so they don't look all the same. Here a circle. I'm going to give it the same material I gave my other things. What is it? Pink. Shade smooth. This material 1. Here, this one is gonna get a cone. This one is gonna get a cone. See, it's really simple modeling. I give it the same material. Nope, not a new material, a simple material I give the other ones as well. 1. And make sure to only do those things for objects you actually see in your scene, because at this point it's hard to say. But yeah, just play around, you know. It's you can't do anything wrong. Let's make this one emissive and maybe green. A little variety. Let's make it also let's pick that roughness. So we have a little color contrast here. Reflection in the ground, cool. And now that's what we got. So thank you guys so much for watching. I know this is not something crazy, but I feel like this is something any beginner can do just to get familiar with Blender. That's what this video is for. Just get familiar with how to set materials, how to model a little, how to make adjustments, how to set lighting, because most beginners, they always just start with making something crazy, and then they bite off more than they can chew. But if you make a little scene like that, it's it's a great learning experience. So make sure to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more advanced VFX tutorials, because that's what I do on this channel, visual effects and filmmaking. And see you in the next video. Toodaloo. Hold on a second. In the next video, I'm going to show you how you can make this environment. So stay tuned and subscribe. Later.